column at the CJN, I said that I thought Trump wanted to take Canada because he'd seen a map and thought it would
Yes,
look pretty. And then he, like, the next day posted, or like a couple days
that's
later,
definitely a different
posted
interview.
that. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, so he is really like a simple man. So my thinking is that he knows that Jews didn't vote for him and he's really into loyalty
Hmm.
and he's into rewarding the people who support him and harming the ones who didn't. And this is revenge. And the reason, like, there are just data points that make me, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, so, but not about Soros. But I'm thinking, like, this kind of, I thought about this when there was that leak to Atlantic editor Jeffrey
Yes.
Goldberg, and he was, like, blamed for having been leaked too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And also just this more recently, again, as you say, we're recording on April 15th, the callousness just now, Trump's callousness about Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and his family nearly getting burned alive on Passover,
Hmm.
which is a thing that happened in the States, and the exact story there has yet to be explained. And, but, you know, not a not good thing that happened. That much can be said with confidence. And yeah, I feel like there's a theory about Trump that he's trying to reward far right Jews or
Hmm.
very enthusiastically Zionist Jews, but I sort of feel like he's more just trying to crap on liberal Jews. And if that incidentally benefits a handful of Jews, so be it. But like, I think he's just kind of mad. And like, maybe this is me being a native New Yorker picturing him just like, I don't know. I don't know whether that's informing some of my theories, but
I
anyway.
think it definitely, I mean, whether it's primarily out of support for far right wing Jews or malice toward liberal Jews, I think the end result is the same, right? Which is, um, I don't see how you can cut hundreds of billions of dollars in research funding to universities and say, I'm doing this for the Jews and not increase anti-Semitism, right? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand how you can, and I'm so glad you brought up Governor Shapiro because, and I caught myself doing it too, where like Trump's statement on it was like, well, the guy wasn't a Trump fan. Like, okay, thank you so much for that, Mr. President. He so didn't like so clearly didn't care about what could be, we don't know, but like what could easily be given that it was the first night of Passover, given that he's a Jewish governor, um, and one of the country's most prominent Jewish politicians could be anti-Semitic. There was just nothing about that, and they went back to arresting students. I did it too, right? I came like, this administration doesn't care about anti-Semitism. We're being used. And it's like you're being baited into calling into just yelling into the void, right? Because they continue to pursue all these policies anyway. Does that make sense? In other words,
Yeah.
like it's not like I'm going to write one of these articles or post something or say like, actually, you don't care about anti-Semitism, and they're all going to either go, "You're right, we don't," or like, "Oh, you're right, this doesn't make Jews safer. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. We're going to reverse our now." Like, no,
Well,
obviously.
yes. So the into the void thing is what I want to kind of stick with for a moment now, because that is something I've been struck by here, and I think there's also potentially a danger in overstating how important, how complicit. Like, so I read a Substack piece that was sort of a continuation of a New York Magazine
Mhm,
Intelligencer piece by Sam Adler Bell
mhm,
that was saying that sort of pointing to complicity
mhm.
of liberal Jews, I guess liberal Zionist Jews mainly, who are saying this is a pretext
Right.
and saying like, no, if you were defining anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, you kind of have blood on your hands at this moment. And I've been thinking about this just in terms of like this specifically like the student complaints,
Mhm.
right? So students complaining that they felt unsafe on campus during the encampments, Jewish students saying
Right.
this. And I guess I'm just wondering like do you see those complaints as like well, first of all, the simple question, do you think that the students who complained about anti-Semitism were complicit in what would come to happen later?
I mean, no, I'm not going to blame students for. I one of the heartbreaking things to me about this moment is that like it's hard being a college student having any identity, and I think that what students students with any identity that sort of were impacted or implicated by this conflict were put through last year was really unfair. I think it was going to be hard enough anyway. I think the involvement of national politicians and major outside groups like actually that doesn't help. Actually, that's not really conducive to education and lowering the temperature and having exchange. And in all of that, am I going to say, you're 18 years old, you're scared on campus, you filed a complaint, now your classmate's being deported and it's your fault? Like, no, I'm not going to say that. I do think, however, that look, I think that liberal Jews, that it behooves those of us who consider ourselves to be liberal and who are Jewish to just think about the role that we want to be playing in the story, right? Like, yeah, and actually that's the end of that sentence. What is it? Okay, it's maybe you complained about or you were sick to your stomach about student protests. Like what and now this is happening. What do you want to do with that feeling right now? You can't go
Mm-hmm.
back to last year. You know what I mean? Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
go back to complaining to your child's alma mater or to your child's university or to writing to calling to your member of Congress. You can't go back to and stop from saying like, no, this slogan or that is anti-Semitic because it might lead to this. Like all we have is where we are. And so what do you want to do with that? That I think, like, to me, that's the more useful question. And the other thing that I think I would say is that it's true both in terms of policy advocacy and also in terms of Jewish communal debates, right? So like, and I'm, it's not surprising that I feel this way given my book and everything I've written on the subject, but like, I don't think that pushing for a legal recognition of one type of Jewish identity is that's conducive to building strong Jewish identities and Jewish communities. And I kind of think that we're seeing that play out now, right? That when you do draw hard and fast lines on a policy level, that it ends up like you end up with Batar, right? You end up with a list saying these are the bad Jews. And I just hope that's something that we can reflect on moving forward.
You're more of a forward thinker. I have a tendency to be a bit of a over analyzing recent history type of person.